Got the deck open here. I'll probably skip a few of the slides.
Yeah, I mean, just total flexibility of what slides you wanted to present. We should be going live here pretty soon. Yeah, I mean, just total flexibility of what slides you wanted to present. All right, so we are now live on Facebook. And I don't know, do we want to put out one last notification to the Telegram group?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, let me, okay, so we are live right now on Facebook. To everybody that's out there, we are, we'll get started in just a moment. Right now, we just opened up the live, so we're gonna let people that are joining us either from LinkedIn or from Telegram, from the earlier notifications to jump in. So we'll get started in just a moment, folks. Let's see. Do the invite to. Okay. And we have one. Hey, Cypher says, hey, looking good. Are you wearing shorts? I am not wearing shorts. Angelo, you're not wearing shorts, are you?
You know, usually I would be just for my own self-satisfaction in these types of settings. But on this particular occasion, I'm not. That's definitely somebody from the Adbank Telegram group.
Okay, well,
there was a live stream that we did, and I was in New York in a hotel room, cooped up in the best part of the room that had the best, strongest Wi-Fi signal, which is a constant challenge when you're on the road and still trying to work. But somehow a picture of me got circulated wearing shorts, but I had a suit jacket on like this, and so my secret got it.
Well, okay, well, you could do a suit jacket with like Bermuda shorts, so maybe that was kind of the theme, huh?
They were not matching at all. I got to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Just in case that picture somehow resurfaces, it totally unmatching.
So Cypher, just to answer your question, no, he is not wearing shorts today. So, but glad you could join us for the live stream. Cypher, if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. We'll get into the Q&A a bit later. Cypher, where are you from? Where are you joining us from? May or may not answer that, but okay, I'm gonna do one last thing and then we'll get started. I got 7 minutes after.
Sounds good.
And of course, all this will be edited out of the actual video.
The rawness of live is great, but
yeah, it can be good. It can be good. It can be frustrating too. Nova Scotia
version as well for the rest.
Welcome. I'm just in Minneapolis, so I'm almost in Canada. So from Nova Scotia, there's Cypher. So, all right. Okay, everybody, we'll get started. Welcome to On the Blockchain. I am Dale. This is our ongoing exploration of Adtech, MarTech, and digital media on the blockchain. I'm glad you could join me for today's episode. I'm trying to do these every Wednesday with different projects. I don't necessarily, wait a minute. So I'm going to, I guess I am the host. Okay. So I've done a few projects that are kind of in that ad tech space. Today is a continuation of the ad tech space. I am joined, or I'm with a project by the name of Adbank, and I have their CMO and co-founder, Angelo, and is it Dodaro?
Yep, that's
Did
right.
I say that right? No, I lost your audio, it looks like.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, no,
Excellent.
that's
Okay.
close enough.
Yeah. So welcome, everybody. Glad you could join us in the live stream. If you're with us in the live stream, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be addressing those later once Angelo jumps into some of the items that he's going to present. And for Adbank, when I looked at that, I kind of get a sense that, so some of the projects I've looked at touch on different parts of ad tech. And this one kind of reminds me of some of the programmatic, maybe programmatic ad buying. I don't know, Angelo, am I right on that?
There's definitely some inspiration from a lot of different areas of ad tech. We're not currently programmatic, but at a certain point, we'd like to go there. Obviously, a certain size requirement and a level of inventory is needed to have a really effective programmatic tool or network. But absolutely, there's so many great things about programmatic that we take inspiration from.
Absolutely. And in the area, and something I've shared about in other videos, if you watch some of the videos that I've done, this is a schematic that I like to share. This is a schematic of the 6,000 vendors in the MarTech and AdTech ecosystem currently. That's the latest chart. And when I talk about this, I talk about the inherent inefficiencies and problems in this space. So the projects that I've been doing in this exploration of blockchain and decentralization are trying to solve for a lot of the inefficiencies and problems that exist. And amongst those inefficiencies and problems are a lot more fraudulent traffic. We're dealing with bots a whole lot more. So if you are a marketing executive, you're a CMO, you're an agency owner that does campaigns for clients, you're probably experiencing this as well. Mm-hmm. Or you have experienced it, and if not, you probably will shortly, or you're not maybe you're not paying close enough attention to your numbers to detect it, but it's there, trust me. And one thing I wanted to say about Adbank is you guys did I think your white paper is one of the best constructed white papers that I've seen of the projects I've looked at, and you do a really good job of getting into detail, almost at an academic level, of the problems that we have currently in the ad tech and MarTech ecosystem. So, since these videos are not really geared towards people in the crypto space, investors and traders, we really want to focus on people that will eventually be the end users of these platforms. What a white paper is many of these projects as blockchain projects that have an associated token, they publish a white paper that kind of breaks down the entire project, explains what we refer to as the tokenomics. How does their token work in their ecosystem? So we could get a general idea. Think of it, I don't want to call it a prospectus because I don't want to associate it with traditional investing, but it gives us that deeper view of what the project's all about. Now, AdHive, which I will be putting the link in the recorded version of this video to the AdHive where you can get the white paper. If you're not familiar with some of the inefficiencies and the problems currently in the ad tech space, I would encourage you to take a look at their white paper. If you have people on your staff, maybe juniors on your staff, it would be a great read for them to understand what's really going on. So hats off to you guys at Adbank for putting really good white paper together.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I mentioned inefficiencies and some of the other problems. I think it was just this week that just yesterday, Facebook went in front of the EU Parliament. I understand that didn't go so well, it sounds like, for Facebook, or they weren't necessarily too happy. We've got increasing number of users or people using things like ad blockers. People are realizing what the value of their data is online. So there's a lot of interesting things happening at the same time. So hopefully, if you're either watching us on the live stream or you're watching a recorded video, the information that you'll hear today is going to be of value. So let's jump into it because we got about a quarter after. Angelo, if there's anything about the project that you wanted to share, you have the screen.
Sure. Okay. Well, I will just flip over to a quick deck that I have here. We won't spend too much time on it.
Yeah.
And we'll go over to take a look at the beta platform where we actually have, I'm very proud to say that we're one of the few projects out there in crypto that have true utility of their token. And right now we actually have advertisers and publishers that have total transparency of payments between each other. So they can trace every dollar, in this case token, or a fraction thereof, to see that an advertiser is getting what they paid for, and on the publisher end that they're actually getting paid what's entitled to them. And what we'll talk a little bit more about is how rare that is and how the industry has become this big black box, or walled garden, as a lot of people like to call it. And Adbank's really born out of three issues that we are very passionate about solving. And truthfully, there is one core issue that causes the other two. And the first is a lack of transparency in the industry. It is one of the most untransparent or opaque industries out there. And that has led to two really serious issues: excessive markups and ad fraud. And ad fraud's costing $51 million a day this year for advertisers. So it's a multi-billion-dollar a year problem. It's not something that's getting any better. In 2016 to 2017, the cost of ad fraud more than doubled. So, you know, we would think that technology would be keeping up to the fraudsters. It's not. Ad fraud is actually the second most profitable form of income for organized crime. So it's a very serious thing. It's only beaten by drugs. So really? Yeah, that's a shocking stat, you know, yeah. Absolutely mind-blowing stat. And so that, you know, those core issues are really all things that blockchain is perfectly teed up to solve. And that's why experts are very excited about the use case of advertising for blockchain. And I think there's a couple other industries that are so well paired up for blockchain, similar to like supply chain is another one that I think is just a no-brainer sort of matchup. And advertising, after obviously finance, as we saw with Bitcoin, the original use case of blockchain, the other industries that this can help is so far reaching, because there are so many industries that suffer from a lack of transparency, and the problems that manifest or that become byproducts of that afterwards look a little different, and they cost a little different between each use case. And when it comes to advertising and supply chain is another one that I always mention, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar a year problem. Even solving a small piece of it is huge, huge business. And it's something that's not happening in a meaningful way right now. It's only getting worse. So I'll share my screen. We'll talk a little bit more about Adbank in a second here.
Yeah, you mentioned supply chain. I think it was announced yesterday. I know they've been working on it, but I think it was announced just yesterday that Walmart put a patent on their blockchain solution for their supply side or supply chain logistics. So there's certainly a lot going on in the entire blockchain space.
It's huge. And I always mention supply chain because everybody knows the saying, oh, something fell off the truck, you know,
right.
And that saying is it's everywhere. You know, everybody's heard that saying. Everybody, even if they don't know what it originally came from, it's just like one of those ubiquitous sayings. And that is something as common as advertising, in a sense that everybody's exposed to advertising every day. And so there's kind of this Wizard of Oz sort of moment of realization where the curtain pulls back and you realize how many insidious activities are going on in advertising, and it's pure white collar crime at the end of the day. It's something that just gets so easily swept under the rug, yet it's gone so wildly out of control that solutions like what we're trying to do become very feasible, even though we're in a space that is less conventional than what advertisers are used to. But it's gotten to the point where we need to have less conventional means and methods to solve these problems because they're so big and so out of control. So,
well, it's also pretty unusual so we didn't do much of a background on you because, Angelo, you actually come from the digital marketing space. I mean, you've got a pedigree in that space. You've been in it. You've seen it firsthand. So you can speak the language of marketing executives and agency owners that are dealing with this. But, to those individual advertisers, individual players, we've all heard the story about, Procter & Gamble and Unilever, and they've kind of called out the industry on these inefficiencies and these frauds, but they're probably of the minority of the actual advertisers that are out there that have the bandwidth and the internal talent to be able to detect these things. I would suspect that the vast majority of people, individual businesses, I can't say that the ad spend, but the businesses that represent maybe that minority ad spend, they're just as much victims, and they don't even know it.
100%, 100%. Those are the people that really are some of the biggest losers. If you think about it, a dry cleaning store around a corner from where you live may have $1,000 to spend on whatever XYZ ad network, of which 80% of the spends are going to two large companies that I'm sure anybody here could guess.
Yeah.
And when you think about that $1,000 being cut to 500, that's a meaningful amount of revenue that is lost to an advertising budget that was misappropriated by somebody who put hard-earned dollars into it. And so that's not to minimize, the Procter & Gamble's out there. What I think is so great about companies like Procter & Gamble and Unilever on the other end of the spectrum is they're in the position to fight for the rest of us in a way that we cannot, because Procter & Gamble is one of the very few companies that spends in the billions of dollars a year on advertising, over 7 billion, probably more this year. That stat at this point must be out of date. As we know, advertising budgets tend to only go in one direction, and it's not down. So yeah, when you say the small business, the plight of small business is something that is very, very important to me, because I've been connected to that. I've been an advertiser using common tools, which, by the way, I love. I love a lot of the industry standard tools that are out there in ad tech. There are so many people making so many great things. The problems really just come from these core issues. And if we can keep a lot of the other stuff that's working out there, we could have something that can actually impact the world in a significant way. And that may sound grandiose when you actually consider how many things are affected by advertising. Somebody was just saying this so one of our co-founders was interviewed on the Wall Street Stock Exchange, and one of her co-hosts that were there was mentioning, there's literally charities that are promoting their message that are actually saving the world, that are using advertising to do it. And when you think about those charities then are becoming affected by issues like ad fraud and excessive markups and whatever, other boogeyman is lurking in the digital corners of the advertising space, it becomes a problem that's a lot more relatable to everybody. And so that's why on our website, one of the things that we use to communicate to people, the next 10 years, ad fraud is going to cost 50 billion. And now just a few months later, that figure already is starting to seem like it will be very small. And we try to explain to people, how much is $50 billion? To the average person, it's a massive amount of money that's unrelatable. Well, how do you make it relatable? $50 billion is enough to solve the world hunger crisis and fix homelessness in the United States. And that's stats from the United Nations and the New York Times. So, when you think about that, it's really, really easy to get a grander sense of how big the problem is, because we can relate to problems like world hunger and homelessness and very, very real problems that humanity faces. And when you kind of show how evil the boogeymen of digital advertising can be in relation to being able to solve those problems, that's how big this problem is. People start to listen. So anyways, I will digress on that point because as you can tell, I get pretty passionate about talking about some of it. So yeah, anyways, let me tell you a little bit about Adbank and the brainchild of it. So it was founded by John Gillam, our CEO, and CTO Kyron Brandberger. And these guys actually have a really interesting background. So John is a former mechanical engineer for ExxonMobil, their company Imperial Oil. And he's actually a serial entrepreneur who has about 10 years of digital advertising experience, was creating a lot of websites on the side when he was working at Imperial Oil. And it got to the point where his little businesses became pretty big businesses and made sense for him to essentially leave his job behind and go full steam ahead into the world of digital entrepreneurship. And he co-founded a digital asset acquisition private equity fund. And they own over 6,000 websites. So they know the business of digital advertising very, very well from the publisher end. And John also has marketing experience as well in various different capacities with his different businesses that are all digital businesses. So he knows the side from the advertisers as well. So he's very connected to both in kind of a classic hybrid scenario. Whereas Kyron has a very interesting mix of development background and ad tech experience, one of which his notches in his belt, I guess you could say, was being a co-founding team member of an ad network that sold to Google for about $23 million. And that was 10 years ago now, so some time ago, and developed General Motors' first fully digitally integrated marketing system. So people that don't just understand tech, but also understand the advertising tech space. Maybe I shouldn't gloss over this last slide, but just so that everybody knows, this isn't an offer to solicit securities. We're not giving any investment advice or any of that sort of stuff. So the current online advertising system is extremely murky. Like I was saying, it's a black box, or the walled gardens, as many people call it. And it's riddled with middlemen. So they're taking on the low end 20%, which truthfully is rare or unheard of. And on this sheet, it says 50%. In some cases, actually, it's 70 to 90%. In other cases, these ad tech middlemen are not even telling you how much they're taking a cut of. They're basically just saying, here's your money, kid, and get out of here. So that particularly frustrates me because the advertisers are bringing the money, right? The publishers are the ones that are bringing the traffic. The people in the middle should be facilitating this transaction, and there's too much weight being concentrated into the middle. And it's time that advertisers and publishers actually get what they deserve, because they are the real stakeholders that bring the bulk of the value to this equation. So the reasons why these networks need to exist: there's fragmented advertisers and affiliates. So they need to find and connect and agree on a standard terms or method of payment in an existing network. That's one method that accomplishes this. People look to these ad networks as trust, or like an escrow agent, so that they know that as an advertiser, they know that this ad tech middleman is ensuring that the publisher is going to deliver the amount of impressions that the advertiser is paying for, and ensuring that the publishers actually get paid. And in the case of the third affecting the advertiser primarily is the fraud prevention and ensuring proper ad delivery. So it's very complex, and impossible to audit any of these platforms. Pick any platform out there that you've used digitally, and you cannot audit it to ensure that what you are being shown in your analytics dashboard is actually what you paid for, and if it is in fact accurate. And so these are huge, huge, costly problems. I love, Dale, that you mentioned Mark Pritchard or Procter and Gamble. So Mark Pritchard is the CBO. They've been absolutely massive advocates of fighting ad fraud, so much so that they put their money where their mouth was and pulled all of their digital spending last year. And this is a quote from their CBO, Mark Pritchard, who's almost become the face of digital ad fraud. And he mentions here a bot called MethBot. And for those of you who've never heard of this, this is one bot run by a small group of Russian hackers. Okay. One bot, just imagine this for 1 second. One bot run by a tiny small group of Russian hackers, and it makes $3 to $5 million a day faking video views. That's just one group, one little small piece of the pie. So that particular stat just blows my mind, because it goes to show, if that can be accomplished by one group of hackers, what is going on there amongst the entire world. So, we want to obviously preventing ad fraud and bringing transparency to that process of the end-to-end from advertiser to publisher and back, having the ability to have it verified by a third party, and validating the viewability standards. So we need to have better measurement of ads in every respect, excuse me. And right now we have very, very poor standards. And it's at a point where, even above the below standard is almost made to feel like this is a high-end touch, where blockchain essentially is a no BS sort of system. You can't tamper with the decentralized nature of a network that's as strong as the Ethereum network. So basically, with a solution like Adbank, is you're always able to go under the hood. So you can do your own audit, and that may be unreasonable for the dry cleaner example that we said earlier, but for your Procter and Gamble's and for your Unilevers and other companies of that size, they have multiple people staffed that would comb through that data like it's nobody's business, because of the great things that it can do for their company. And not just for their company, by creating something that is truly decentralized to the benefit of the advertising community, we all benefit from it because it's open source. So the solution is really, this is a very simplified idea of it, but we're using smart contracts for the payment layer. That's where kind of the magic happens with the Adbank solution. So publishers are getting paid super fast, and we're also able to find fraud fast at the payment level. And so that gets a little deeper into the tech stuff, which I'm going to glaze over a bit, because I don't want to see one of our developers shedding a tear later on. And, they will if I don't do it justice to explain it. We have a great article on our blog. So it's medium.com/adbank-blog. And it goes through our publisher reputation scoring system from our lead developer and architect, Dr. Fode Toure. And Dr. Fode Toure is, he has a PhD in computer science with a specialty in machine learning. There is a very small number of people on the planet that are as qualified as this individual is to tackle some of the most serious problems that advertising is facing. And it gets pretty nerdy, I will warn you. It's it's not for the faint of heart, but for those of you who are a little bit more technologically savvy and maybe even a foot past that, it's a very, very good read to give you the nuts and bolts of how we will be actually doing that. How are we actually going to separate the fraudulent bad actor publishers from the good ones? And there's a lot of techniques that are out there that are non-blockchain based, some of which I think have been doing a great job, like ads.text and things like this that are creating a trusted database of publishers and advertisers. But what the industry really needs is something that is as low friction as possible and is trusted, or in the case of blockchain, what we like to say a lot is it's trustless. You don't need to trust anything because it's beyond a system of trust. And this opens up so many areas that previously were barricaded. So, we're very much focused on the technical innovation combined with the business model innovation. So we talk about the technical innovation. That's things like our anti-fraud artificial intelligence system. And so that's tied in with our payment protocol, and that exists on the blockchain. That's the blockchain component of it. That is really what we mean when we say our technical innovation, and kind of what lies beyond that. With the business model innovation, however, is kind of really what's immediately exciting, because things like AI take time to train. So we've already begun the data generation process to train the AI, but what we can do sooner, and right now what we're doing with the launch of our first ad network that's run fully on the blockchain, or the payment layer is fully on the blockchain, made by Adbank, is our crypto advertising network. It's called Intergalactic Ads, and we're launching it for June 1st, right as Google is canceling all the advertising on their network. Yeah. So, that's something that's catering specifically to the cryptocurrency audience, because they are particularly starved for a solution like this. And the reason why there's an innovation component to the business model is because the blockchain allows us to actually charge far less markups than any other centralized platform that exists out there. That's something that we guarantee with our Intergalactic Ads platform. It's something that we want to guarantee as well for all of our future ad networks and verticals that may occur in the future. So one of the things that ICOs often get criticized for is how they use their funds. What we are very aware of with Adbank is, if you want to create an ad network from scratch, it's very difficult. And it's something that we're doing right now with our crypto ad network. It wasn't something we originally intended to, but when we recognized a unique opportunity in the market, timing was very critical. And we saw the success that centralized entities were having with a weaker value proposition. And so that was a unique opportunity. But if you try to go and start an ad network in the travel and tourism space today, and you don't have any advertisers and you don't have any publishers, you have this chicken or the egg problem, right? Who's going to advertise if you don't have publishers? Who's going to be a publisher if you don't have advertisers, right? That's a real problem if you want to get into the space. So what we used our funds for when we raised our ICO, a big portion of that obviously does go to development, but a major portion of that went to acquiring existing advertising networks so that we could speed up that process of adoption. And what that does is it basically gives us a working, healthy, profitable business, and figure out the nuances that we need to be aware of to convert something that's out there already to something that is using the blockchain. So something that doesn't use the blockchain, to how is that going to work getting it there? Is it a modular sort of process where you begin with one component here and swap that in and see how that works and work out the kinks? Or is there a path that allows you to go fully converted in a shorter period of time? And what does that look like? And so we've actually already acquired our first ad network, which is in a very interesting vertical with the e-cigarettes. Oh. And this is, first, it was very strange to me when our CEO said, hey, we're looking at this. And when we actually looked at the boxes, anytime you're making an acquisition, you kind of have a wish list. And one of the major things for us was they operated in a vertical where people are more prone to innovative solutions. And in a couple different industries, this industry that we're talking about, gambling, sports betting, that sort of things, they don't have as many options to advertise. Even a lot of health companies actually are very restricted, can't advertise health products on Facebook, and very, very strict restrictions elsewhere as well. So when we realized that, hey, this is actually a vertical that could help us get our foot into the door with an ad network to kind of speed up that process of adoption. And so far that's working really well, far ahead of schedule. We were hoping to have the first ad network converted to the Adtech by the end of the year. And we looked to be substantially ahead of that. So as we have discovered, we'll find out new things along the way, but this acquire and convert strategy is really key for us, and repeating that. And so the bigger play with Adbank, and forgive me for taking a while to get to this, but it's good to lay a little bit of foundation here so you know kind of where our head's at. But Adbank isn't trying to take over Google or something. What we're trying to do is actually create the tools for existing ad networks to tap into so they can leverage the aspects of the blockchain that will improve their business for their customers. And so this is kind of like rather than seeing everybody as a competitor, we're looking to everybody as a partner. And so we want to funnel as much volume through our anti-fraud artificial intelligence, which has patent pending, to make it the best out there. So it's not just good for one network, right? Because one network is going to be exposed to one set of issues and challenges with fraud, and another is going to see, probably a lot of overlap, but there's going to be different unique scenarios based on the setup of that particular network and the type of traffic that goes through there, and the tactics of the bad actors that exist in that realm. And by creating something that any network can tap into, this is something that can be stronger than any one entity can build. And this is really kind of the backbone. And the anti-fraud AI is the first part of that. The second, we have an analytics engine as well coming out, but there are many different products in the pipeline that those existing ad networks will be able to tap into, or they can even scrap it for parts and rebuild it in their vision as well. It is open source. And the last thing that I wanted to mention here as well is there's also a lot of companies and publications even that have their own ad servers or using their own ad tech. And that's something that we built this for. So all the tools that we're building, if the New York Times decides that they want to take advantage of the benefits of the blockchain, to know that they are getting paid properly for all the impressions they're delivering, and likewise giving their customers the satisfaction that they're getting the traffic that they rightfully paid for. We'll actually have the tools to help them in those scenarios too. So there's a spectrum of needs, and we plan to fill them all.
Can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
So for the point of clarity, because this might be the first time that people that watch this on LinkedIn or what have you hear about Adbank, and they're trying to understand these different projects. So for the point of clarity, in the past, I've done an interview with a project that's looking to solve, or they're looking at a solution through a browser approach. Other ones might be looking at it through maybe a plugin that would go on Chrome. So for clarity's sake, your Adbank is actually doing this through the acquisition of existing ad networks. So there's nothing. Would it be a situation where if I'm a publisher that's already on this ad network, I'm not going to have to do anything new? Or how is that going to work for a publisher? And would it seem seamless to them? Or?
Yeah, no, very good question. It's super important too, right? Because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we made the process as familiar as possible for the advertiser and the publisher. And in the sense of the consumer experience, our goal is to have it so the consumer never notices anything changed. On the publisher end, it's just as easy as before, where they have the codes generated for the different placements they want to put into their website. And as soon as they put it in there, they're already monetizing their website. So it's really as easy as a lot of the great solutions that have already existed out there. And for the advertiser end, right now, the ad networks that we are operating ourselves, they are managed solutions. So although we do have a self-serve interface that we'll take a quick look at afterwards here, we actually create the accounts for them and help them, because obviously there's the layer of the blockchain and token element. And that's something that we assist them with because we realize it's unfamiliar for them. And we are big believers in reducing friction. In marketing, that's just kind of a golden rule, right? You got to reduce friction to the sale. And so that's something that we're actively always trying to do with whatever effort.
Okay.
So I'll skip across this. This is a little deeper into our tech stack. It's all in our white paper if you want to take a deeper look, the network flow, that and how kind of the what we call our core services interacts with the Ethereum network. And just for the brief little nerdy digression here, if you are familiar with the Ethereum network or blockchain in general, one thing it's exceptional for is security and for trust, a trusted system. But one thing that it's not so great at is it's notoriously slow. And so there is a lot of talk in the blockchain community of scalability, and something like an ad network, if we're talking about triggering a smart contract, which is just think of it as a transaction. And every time one of those fires, if that was, or every time one of those fired for a ad displayed on a network, that would be an absurd amount of transactions required, and it would surely cripple the Ethereum network. So we actually have a tech stack that bundles transactions off chain and processes them through the Ethereum network at a pace that meets our advertisers' needs while still preserving the benefits of the blockchain for transparency and the payments layer. So forgive me if that's a little over people's heads. Blockchain does have a bit of a steep learning curve, but for those of you who know a little bit about blockchain and enough about advertising, probably had that crossing your mind. So I just wanted to check that off. This is, I know we don't have a ton of time, so I'm just going to quickly show this on the screen, how we compare to some of the other ad tech solutions that exist on the blockchain. BAT is a great example, great team with a great project, very focused on creating a browser solution. We are very different in the sense than all these projects that we don't want to change the experience for advertisers and publishers. We want to keep it simple for them. We want them to be able to control how much revenue they're generating on the publisher side, and ensuring advertisers are always getting paid fairly. But one of the big things is we actually are creating the platform tools. So that means we're actually platform agnostic. And that's the component that allows other ad networks to tap into our various tools and use them to provide the benefits of the blockchain to their networks and their existing customers, which really is the important path to adoption for us. If we have networks or create networks or acquire networks that fail, that's not something that, although we don't want that to happen, of course,
Sure.
It's not the end of our strategy. It's not the end all be all. It's really only the beginning for us to springboard into making the infrastructure and pipelines of the future of digital advertising. So this is a little outdated at this point, so I'll skip over this stuff here. this is some of our core team. You can see this on our website as well. Some of the companies our team has worked for, from Tesla Motors to GM to Revlon, L'Oreal, ExxonMobil, some of the biggest companies on the planet. And now I'd really like to show you, unless you have some questions, just quickly. Interface.
Yeah, this is the great part, and as Angelo mentioned, so the projects I'm really looking at, while there's a lot of projects that are out there, a lot of them are nothing more than a white paper or at the white paper stage. So what I've been focusing on in reaching out to projects and to be able to present them to you is to focus on projects that actually, as long as they're in a beta or they've made it that far to where they're working on a product or perfecting a product. Because again, I mean, the idea of a project with grand ideas, that's nothing more than a white paper. You as a marketing executive, you as an advertising agency owner or agency owner, don't want to waste your time on those projects. So we want to try and present you with projects that have made it into a beta. So that's a great thing about Adbank is they do have a beta product. And I will put the link in the video. And I believe pretty much anybody can anybody, where is the beta at? Is it North America or where are you doing your beta?
Yeah, so the beta is open to anybody, and the ability to use it effectively for your business really just depends on the publishers that are onboarded. So which is why we have a managed component right now. So okay. Meaning you'll interact with a rep, and they'll make sure that you're matched up to a publisher that is appropriate for your campaign and to make sure that you're getting the most for your money. But yeah, you can go to beta.adbank.network, sign up for an account, whether you're an advertiser or a publisher. If you're a publisher, you can sign up for an account, drop the code in your site, and we'll be able to deliver ads for you today. So that's pretty cool, and something that's in the top 5% of projects out there, in my opinion, of that actually have true utility. So it's something we're really, really proud of, and onboarding new publishers and advertisers every day, which is not common, unfortunately, in the blockchain space, but still early days. Here you'll be able to see kind of the first incarnation of the Adbank network. This is actually a demo account. I had the devs make it for me because I wanted the pie charts and the graphs to look cool.
Sure.
So this one's a demo account, but you can sign up for an account that looks exactly like this. You can see I'm in an advertiser account right now, and it's showing 3 metrics for 3 different campaigns.
You might, I'm not seeing it. I'm just seeing your contact page. So I don't know if you flipped over to a different.
Oh yeah, I think I have to select it on Zoom. Just give me a second here. Let me just get the share going. Where is it? Here we go.
So while Angelo is doing that, the reason I mentioned, asked him if he was in North America, because there are some projects. I think there's one like they're a decentralized social media network. Decentralized social media network. They are in beta, but they're only in Indonesia and some parts of Asia. So while projects, because the one thing I'll point out about this crypto space is a great thing to me is it's a global community. It's not just a North American or a US market or what have you. There's great development and great projects, but it's happening on a global scale with international teams. And I think there's a great deal of excitement in the space. So, but again, some projects, they may be in beta, but they're only in maybe Russian speaking or Ukrainian speaking or what have you. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, it's great. We're actually doing some pilot campaigns right now in pre-launch phase for a crypto ad network, and have a really huge announcement coming out in the near future with a major globally known company, and let's just say another partner on the other end that will be very, very big news for the blockchain community, and I think solidify in people's minds advertising as one of the primary uses of blockchain outside of finance and currency. So anyways, here's taking a quick gander at the Adbank beta. Like I was saying before, it's a demo account. So I wanted them to have all the nice, pretty colors and graphs actually populated with stuff here. You can see there's 3 kind of test campaigns. It's showing the clicks versus impressions. Very standard stuff. A campaign creation screen. When you have your campaigns created, they're all listed here and organized by whether they're actually running or pending or paused. Analytics here, and let me show you what's really interesting here. So kind of doesn't look like anything too special, but this here is the end of the black box in digital advertising. What you're looking at is one of the first, potentially the first ad network that has functioning ads right now, delivering impressions with 100% transparency between advertiser and publisher. So each of these represents a transaction between an advertiser and a publisher. And this shows how much was actually the amount in Adbank tokens. And as you can see, this is a demo account, so there's only a few entries here. Otherwise, a very robust campaign would have an enormous amount of entries. And, that may seem almost insignificant at first until you really realize how starved for transparency the advertising industry is. And it's come to this point that we literally have to create a system that shows you on a verifiable public ledger what everybody's getting, what they paid for, because the problems are so rampant.
So let me ask you, since you're showing, I mean, I'm certainly familiar with what I'm looking at, but people that are viewing or might view the video that have no idea anything about crypto or cryptocurrency or tokens, and we didn't really talk about your tokenomics and the role of the token in the Adbank ecosystem. But for the sake of a marketing executive or even an agency that does the advertising on behalf of a brand, what's going to be the process? And maybe the process you have now isn't going to be the process that will be the final process, but will they go somewhere to buy the tokens to be able to use? And so how does that whole thing work?
So right now, through our managed solutions, so the networks that we're operating, that there is an actual rep, they would deal with them, and they can fund their account through Bitcoin, Ethereum, or cash.
They can do a fiat. Okay.
Yeah. And so we do convert that into Adbank tokens. And the reason for that, and the reason why the token is really important, is because, let me give you an example with the real world, right? So you have your credit cards, and that's how you normally pay for advertising online. Now, the issue is that we don't have access as an ad network when we're speaking, especially in the in the framing of addressing fraud. We can't follow the path of that money beyond the gateway of our network. So meaning we don't have access to your bank account. We don't have access to your credit card statements. And so why that becomes important is we can't follow the money in a meaningful way. And that is really what you have to do to find any criminal that is operating from a product mode. You need to follow the money. That's what everybody always says, right? So now with an Adbank token, and the reason why a token, a new one, makes more sense than using, let's say, Bitcoin or Ethereum, which do still have the trackability that we're talking about in a token, but the issue that they have is noise. And what I mean by that is those currencies are being used for so many things. To be able, when we're talking about an AI, the AI then has to filter out what is advertising versus non-advertising before it is ever trying to answer the most important question, which is this fraud or is this not fraud? Is this human or is this not human? And so what the token allows us to do is remove, or rather greatly reduce, that signal to noise ratio that exists in the data that is non-advertising based related to the transactions occurring. So, meaning the transactions in your bank account, the transactions in your credit card statements, we can't follow them past our ad network. With the token, we see its path end to end from the beginning, since the day that we created them. So that gives us an unparalleled ability to actually address this problem from an angle that has never been done before. So that's why we also feel like we're a great partner for other networks out there, and why we think in the near future advertisers and publishers will be asking their ad networks, their ad partners to integrate components of our tech to give them that reassurance, because we will be able to complement what they're doing. We're only here to take enough market share from the non-blockchain based advertising companies just to make them realize that this is something that they need to take seriously. And that's already happening. And we barely even scratched the surface yet.
So when we look at the dashboard and the reporting, and it's a great point that Angelo just made, if the industry is asking for transparency and they want, I'm not going to say it's necessarily, they want to spend a lot of time in really granular reporting, but they just want to know that that transparency is there, and that that dollar I spent on advertising actually went to buy advertising. So that's a great example of how that ledger concept of the blockchain can be applied in this situation. But as I look at your platform, Angelo, I'm thinking, will I, as an advertiser, maybe an agency partner to a brand, as ad networks integrate in, as Adbank either acquires or there's integration through APIs or however it grows, will my dashboard then, will I be able to look at my campaigns cross-channel?
That's a good question. And so it's hard to answer and really provide an answer that would probably cover that in all the scenarios that would manifest itself, because the beauty of open source technology is you can kind of scrap it for parts. And so I think what you'll see is a spectrum of people integrating Adbank into their systems. And the way that looks can be a little different. So in the case of when you'll see an Adbank dashboard that's showing you outside metrics, I can give you an example or two of when I think that might happen with some partners that we have already. One being a video platform that has a really cool proof of view technology using blockchain technology called Veracity. So it's kind of a YouTube on the blockchain, if you will. And forgive me to the marketing department at Veracity if I didn't do it justice with that term, but for sake of simplicity, I think that kind of gives you the idea of what they do. We're not trying to create a new YouTube. So it made sense for us to partner with them to explore how we can help their video creators monetize the content they're making. And in that case, if they run the campaign and they pay for the campaign in the Adbank interface, then it would make sense to me that we show their metrics in Adbank. If it's a situation where another ad network is tapping into Adbank's tools and they are kind of serving that customer end to end, then I would expect that just as a customer, from a customer perspective, that's probably where the metrics would live. But the beauty of it again is we could see such a wide variety and people building on the code and finding new and unique ways to do it, and not just the use cases that we even demonstrate, because we'd like to see that evolve.
So another question I have, and I do want to respect your time, but so again, with the idea that this is for advertisers and marketers, what are the ad types that I would be using? Well, I guess it depends on the ad network that I'm working with, whether they're video or image, or, are there specific ad types? Display, banners, whatever it might be?
Yeah. So the focus right now is display banner ads.
Okay.
So, we have your standard static file formats, GIF, which, forgive me to the graphic designers out there. I know it's not very friendly to colors, but we have it there as an option for those that want to use it, and integrating HTML5 any day now, which is become the preferred file format, in my opinion, for display banner ad advertising. And display banner ad advertising is definitely just the first stop for us, and seemed like the, for lack of a better term, low-hanging fruit in the industry, the easiest to disrupt, the easiest to clean up some of the biggest problems that needed to be cleaned up. So there's a lot of work to be done in this space, but would love to branch out to other areas of digital advertising as it makes sense, and clean them up as well.
Well, I will, where we're at right now, as of May 23rd, 2018, I mean, it's such an exciting time in this emerging space. I'm trying to stay agnostic because I can't call winners and losers at this point. And there's just so much great innovation going on. And whether it's on the digital media side, decentralized social media, ad networks, whatever. I mean, there's just a tremendous amount of innovation. I think the next few years, it's going to be very exciting for agencies, for marketing executives, and really to create that better internet and do away with some of the badness that's kind of organically or intentionally grown over the last several years. It's going to make a better internet for everybody. You know, when publishers can win, they can monetize their content better. They can focus on creating better content, not just more content, so they can get more impressions. I mean, it's really gotten out of hand, and I'm so appreciative of these projects that see a better way, and they're seeking a better way. You know, I often say, even though I've been involved in the crypto space since 2014 as an investor and trader, I don't know if the token that becomes the primary token, just like I don't know if the platform that becomes the new, you know, I don't want a new Facebook and I don't want a new Google necessarily, but 5 years from now, this space is moving so fast, it's hard to project what's going to happen. It's fun. And Angelo, do you have any closing statements before I let you go?
You know, the only thing I just like to say, other than thank you to everybody that's watching, is mark my words, you will see it for your own eyes. Blockchain and advertising are inseparable in the future to come. There is no scenario where advertising doesn't get completely turned upside down by blockchain, and the outcome is only good for the advertisers and publishers. And I don't think there's something that we've seen. You know, I'm just a little bit over 30 now. I haven't seen anything like this that I remember since I was trying to get onto dial-up internet, and realizing, you know, in my own roundabout way, how world-changing that was, even though, you know, at that time in my life, it was like, oh, you know, look at this. We get on the phone and we start pulling up pictures on this computer thing that I just learned how to use. Today, seeing blockchain is it's an unshakable certainty for me and many others that have taken the time to understand blockchain and what makes blockchain special. Mm-hmm. I think that is, if there's one takeaway for those of you who are watching this and you haven't taken the time to really get your head around blockchain, and it's tough. And I'm sure that you're all very intelligent people and you're used to getting things easily. Give blockchain a little more time, because when the concept sinks in, you're going to have this moment that we all have where we realize, oh man, this is going to change the world. And it's going to change in so many different areas that will be for the greater good. And that's really my closing statement there. I hope this was helpful for you all, and good luck on your blockchain journey, and hope to talk to you again soon, Dale.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And everybody, thank you as always for joining us on our continuing exploration of blockchain and decentralization in ad tech, martech, and digital content. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And Angelo, you guys have good luck on your patent.
Thank you.
And I'll be watching you guys in Telegram. And until next time, everybody, have a great day.
All right. Cheers.
And we will